Hi, it's Ryan from Ryan Fowler Photography, and I've got a tutorial for you on how to do a full portrait edit inside of Lightroom. So we're not taking this into Photoshop, we're going to do everything right here in Lightroom for you to follow along with and introduce into your own workflow. So this is a photo of me, and what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I'd go through an entire portrait edit. Sometimes if I'm editing a portrait, I'll leave it in Lightroom. A lot of the time I'll take it into Photoshop if it's sort of more of a glamoury style type shot. But what I'll do here is I'm going to start with correcting my skin color. So as you can see, I've got a little bit of red on my face, which is normal in pretty much everybody. But what I'm going to do is I'll come down to this color tab, and I'm going to go to red, then I'm just going to change this hue a little bit so that it takes out some of that redness. If I put that all the way across, you can see how it's taking out all of the red in my skin. Now I don't want it to take out all of the red, I just want it to take out a little bit. So if I just do this, you can see how the red has slightly gone. There's still a little bit there, so it makes it look more realistic. But the actual redness has gone. And my face does look a little bit pale now, but we're going to correct that with a little bit of vibrance shortly. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to reduce my highlight so it brings out more of me, reduces the shadow, and then might actually drop my shadows down just a little bit so it makes my black shirt actually black, and then it brings out more depth within my face. Now this isn't the greatest shot of me, but it'll do for this portrait edit tutorial. So I'm just going to bring my whites up, and you can see where I'm holding Option here, or Alt on a PC, and I've just clicked the white slider and I'm dragging that up until those little spots are gone. So now you can see this big white line has come down my face. Then I'm going to do the same with the blacks, but I'm going to slide it to the left instead of the right. Now you can see where it's got a little bit of black come up just in that bottom left corner there. And I'm actually going to leave that there. I might reduce it just a tiny bit, but that is where pure black actually is. So around there somewhere the histogram will say 0.0.0.0, and that's just going to bring down this color. It's going to bring a little bit more of the contrast in my face and my shirt, and that is what I want. I could just add a little bit more contrast here, but that makes it look kind of drastic. So let's just say I do +6. That adds a tiny bit. You've just got to work with the exposure to see how it looks. Normally, if I was editing this just as a normal guy shot, I'd add a little bit of clarity, because clarity looks pretty good on a guy, and a little bit more contrast because it brings out more of those edges. But if I zoom in on my eyes, which are the sharpest part, then you can see what happens when I actually introduce clarity. And if I zoom out, you can see that that looks kind of shocking. But if I zoom in and then just add a little bit overall, it's a bit too much. Let's just take it to about +10. That adds quite a nice little effect. So if we go before and after, you can see how just those exposure setting changes have actually changed the shot. Now, my face does personally, to me, feel a little bit washed out, but we'll leave that as it is at the moment, and then I'm going to do a little bit of spot removal. So I'll just click on the spot removal tool, zoom in, reduce my brush size. So you can either do that by using this. I'll increase my feather a tiny bit, and I'm just going to go over the little spots and moles and bits and pieces on my skin. So you can see what I did there. When I clicked here, it chooses a point where it actually pulls the information from to replace this section of skin. But sometimes it isn't always accurate. So I'm just going through, but what you can do is you can actually click the section and move it around. So I don't really want it from over there because it's going to look weird. But if I move it close to there where it's got a clean section of skin, that will do just fine. So I'm just going to keep going through, reducing or removing spots. And I'll just move that one across. Alright. I'll do this kind of quickly. When you're actually doing it, especially if you're doing it for a client, I would suggest doing it quite carefully so that you don't miss anything, but for the purpose of this tutorial I'm just going to rush through it a bit, and it's completely up to your discretion how many spots you want to remove. If you want to remove moles or just pimples or whatever it is, that's really your prerogative. I'll leave that up to you. I'm just going to go through and smooth out my skin completely. Obviously I wasn't having a very good skin day on this day. And alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'll just remove these next couple. And that one. So here you can see I've got a couple of little tiny lines. That's because I moved my eyebrows quite a bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and drag the spot removal tool over those lines. I'll bring that down so it matches a bit more. And if I zoom out, there you can see my face is a lot cleaner. I am going to reduce these whites. So you can see what happens as I bring up and remove the reduce those whites. So I've reduced a little bit so my face doesn't look as washed out. And there you go. So you can actually see where I've got. Yeah, I'll just remove that one. So if I just switch the spot removal tool on and off, you can see how clean my face is compared to what it was. And especially if you're looking at a photo of yourself, it makes you look horrible. At least in your own view, it does. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring back a little bit more of my skin tone color. So I'm just going to increase the vibrance. And if I increase it so much, it makes me look like I've got fake tan on. But I'll just increase that enough to bring out more of that skin tone color. And I have put it up to about 100 to 56, but that's brought back my skin tone color without really boosting those reds so much. Now I've got another little mole on my neck, but I'll just leave that one there. I will get rid of this little odd string. There we go. And I'll make that a bit bigger. And there we go. So there we go. That you can see that string is gone. And I could even do replace this little bit with black here. I had a button pop off. So that's why it looks kind of funny. Now I'm going to leave that little spot on my neck there. Next thing I'm going to do is I am going to enable profile corrections. You can do this if you want to. You don't have to. It just takes away a little bit of that vignette, and then I'll remove chromatic aberration, and then I'll go into detail, and this is where I'm going to make sure mainly that the eyes are sharpened. My skin, all that sort of stuff, that's going to get softened. It's usually done more drastically on women's skin, but I'll show you how to do it on my skin. It's the same process for men, women, completely up to you. Just depends on the look you want. So I'm going to boost my sharpness. Now you can see as I boost my sharpness, I'm getting a lot of noise. So if I put that all the way, you can see there's a lot of noise coming out there, which I don't want. But if I reduce it, it's gone slightly soft. So I'm going to boost it up so there's a little bit of noise in there, which is okay, because we're going to mask some of that out, and we're also going to do a bit of noise reduction. Not a huge amount though, because it doesn't need it. I'll boost that up a tiny bit more. And then I'm going to... So if I hold Alt Option again, I can click on there and you can see that the white areas are what's being sharpened, the black areas are not. So it's the same rule as Photoshop. White reveals, black conceals. And at the moment I've just got it on my eyes. Now with that masking, I'll reduce that a tiny bit. You can see where the noise is just around the outside and a little bit on my eyebrows. So what I'll do is I'll just bring noise reduction up, and that takes away so much of that noise. And in here you can see the detail in my skin, which we're going to soften in a minute, I'm going to remove some of the blemishes in that softening process, but still keep some skin detail. But my eyes are now nice and sharp. So what I'll do now is I'm going to pull up an adjustment brush, and I'll double click effect so it resets all of my sliders, and then here where it's got custom you can actually drop down and you've got a whole heap of different options. So temperature, tint, exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows. I'll let you read the rest. But here you've got burn, dodge, which are more Photoshop techniques, iris enhance, which are your eyes, soften skin, and teeth whitening. So I'm going to go iris enhance. Now that boosted the exposure, boosted the saturation, and boosted the clarity. So I'll zoom in on my eyes, zoom in a bit more. And this is zoomed in all the way, so that's why it looks a bit noisy and awful. But I will I've got my brush size about where I want it, and then I'll increase the feather just a tiny, tiny bit. And then I'll just paint on my eyes. And I can actually, I might not actually, I'll show you a different way on how to do just the whites of the eyes. So I'll paint in here, which is the main area that I want, and you can see that if I hit H and hide, you can, and then I'll turn this on and off, you can see how much this has actually brightened my eyes. And sometimes this effect is a little bit too much, probably right about now. So I'm going to reduce that down to about 0.28 enhance. So flick it on and off. And you can see it's boosted just a little bit, the color's popping a little bit more, and it's a bit sharper with that extra little bit of clarity. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go back to new, I'll double click effect, which takes it back to all the sliders at 0, and I'm going to increase the whites. I'll reduce my feather a little bit, and I can just paint in on there. So I'll boost those up quite a lot just so you can see, and I'll paint in the whites of my eyes so that they look a bit more white, which is they are pretty good. Hopefully that means I'm healthy. But I'll just paint in here, and although at this stage this does look quite fake because they are very white, I will reduce the effect a little bit in just a second. I'll paint around this one, and it doesn't take long. When I'm doing this for an actual client photo, it is a bit more careful than what I'm doing for myself right now. I'm just not going to use this image. I've edited a different one from this shoot for me, but I'll just hit or hold Option or Alt on a PC, and then I'll just erase around the edges where I've overlapped on certain sections like that. A little bit more there. Now you can see that there is a slight tinge of yellowness in my eyes. So what I can do is I can actually reduce the saturation in there. Doesn't need to be a huge amount, just a tiny bit. Then I'll increase the whites. I might do just the whites a little bit more. Then I can increase the exposure in general. Now again, that does look a little bit fake, but I'll leave that there just so you can see exactly what my point is. And a good idea is to look at the before and after as you're going along so that you can see if you've missed anything, if you want to add anything else before you go on and do more and more edits. So I'm just hitting the backslash key and you can see my before and afters. Now I'm going to do skin softening. So I'm going to zoom out of my face. I'm going to go to new, go down here to soften skin. Now what this will do to your adjustment brush is reduce the clarity and boost the sharpness so it brings out more just those little skin details. I wish you could see my face right now because I'm actually moving my hands while I'm doing a video that's not on me. So I'm going to go over and just leave the effect as it is at the moment. I can adjust it once I've done it, but if I hit O on the keyboard, or you can click Show Select Mask Overlay, I am going to draw around my face. And I'll do this quickly for the purpose of the video. Again, be careful if you're doing it for a client. Try and avoid spillages going over. You can adjust your brush size as you go along. There we go. So I'm just going to draw around here. Now I won't bother doing my neck or chest or anything like that. I'm starting to look like a superhero here. I won't bother doing my neck or chest or anything like that. You can do that if you want to with a client one, but just for the purpose of the video, to keep it reasonable in time, I'm going to just do my face. The same results will happen on the chest as well. So I'm going to draw around my mouth. Now normally in between doing the eyes and softening skin, I would have done teeth whitening, but because I'm not really showing my teeth here, I don't need to. If I did do my teeth here, the shot would look kind of weird because it's just got these random white teeth showing in a shadow section that I don't really need to show. And then remember to do underneath the eyebrows, just above the eyelids. It's actually kind of an important spot because it's something that some people can miss, but if someone's looking at the photo, they can tell whether you've done the whole photoshopping job or you've actually missed some by accident, which doesn't look very good on you. Okay, so kind of a rough job. I've gone around my eyebrows, missed my eyes on purpose, and missed my lips as well. I haven't done my ears or anything because I don't really need my ears done that much. And what I'm going to do is I'll just hit O again, and you can see how my skin has been softened. The effect is probably too strong at the moment. My face, unfortunately, looks a bit girly with the effect on my skin. But when you're doing it on a woman's skin, it looks a lot nicer. So the effect is very strong. It has made me look like a plastic doll. But to fix that, you can reduce the clarity. So if I reduce that back to 0, you can see how it looks. Then I'll just increase it gradually. And that's back at 100. So my face looks like a doll. I'm probably happy with it right about there. So when you zoom in, remember to zoom out as well. It does look better if you've got sort of an overview look on it as well. 57 is probably still a bit strong. Let's take it down to about 43. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So it's reduced a lot of the little details and nicks and little bits that I wanted to hide but took too long to get out with the spot removal tool. So you can see the difference between having it on and off. And then to bring out more of the details, you can boost the sharpness or reduce it down. I'm going to leave it at about 29, which has brought out some of the pores and stuff in my skin just to show that it's got texture, that it's not made of plastic. And my forehead does look a bit brushed completely, but it gives you a general idea of how you want it to look. Now I'm going to just go over and touch up my lips because when I reduce the red, although it does reduce it here, it reduces it on lips as well. So I'll go new, just going to double click effect, and I'm going to boost the saturation a tiny bit, increase the magenta, make it a slightly softer brush, hit O. Now I don't need to be too careful with this one because my mouth is mostly closed. Now you won't see a huge amount of difference in the effect with this brush, but it just adds a little bit more color, which is what I want it to do. So I'm just going to draw a line around. Oh, it looks like I'm wearing red lipstick. And I'll hit O, which will turn it off. And if I turn the adjustment brush on and off, you can't really see much difference, but there is a little bit more vibrance there. If I wanted to, I could increase it a lot more. Sometimes you can actually have a lot of fun while you're editing people's faces, just by adjusting the colors and seeing all the different things that happen. But let's just take a quick look at this image as it is now compared to what it was. So this is what it was. It looked fairly flat, dull lighting. My eyes didn't really stand out. My skin isn't right, and yeah, it just has a huge difference once you make a few quick edits to it. And this doesn't actually take long. And a quick tip that is very helpful for shooting people with a slightly larger face is in the posing, you've obviously helped them to get as slimmer neckline as you possibly can. I've got a fairly slim neckline here, which is quite good. But you see under here how I've got a shadow that's structured my chin and it's structured my jawline so that it shows that I've got a clean looking face. Sometimes you need to enhance that shadow a little bit, which creates more of a jawline with your client to show off more of their face and hide a bit more of that weight that they may be carrying. So what I'll do is I've got a new adjustment brush. I'm going to reduce the shadows, and then I'll zoom in on my neck. And then I'm just going to paint in around the jawline, under my chin, on my neck, and have spilt over a little bit, so I'll just erase that. So you can see that I've not gone over the jawline, but what I have done is defined it a bit more. I'll zoom out in just a second. I'm going to reduce that shadow line there. That probably does look a bit too manufactured. So I'm going to just make a bigger feather on my brush and just paint in ever so slightly under that section. So I'll leave that big feather on my brush and I'll just paint in under here. Now this effect, I've got the shadows up just a bit too high, mainly for the purposes of showing you, but you can see where I've actually painted in red there, which is where my shadow was under my jawline. Now the effect is definitely too strong, but if I just reduce that to 0, you can see how it was, and the shadow looks pretty good. I'd be happy with that in the actual shot, but if you wanted to, you can just decrease it a bit more. Let's just say -16. Now that does look quite dark, probably because the shadow was quite dark under there. You do need to do this so that it looks right, but you can see how it's defined more of my jawline in that section so that it looks like I've got a slimmer face. That's pretty much a simple portrait edit inside of Lightroom. So you've got before, after. A lot of these effects, especially the skin softening and neckline shadowing, They work a lot better on women than they do on men. Men's a slightly different style. But this is a good way to really learn. Women are more complex subjects to... there's a lot of things that people say about women being more complex subjects, but just in editing photographs of them and making them look the way that they really want to in the photo and giving a good impression from a photo, that's so important, and these techniques will help do that. I do hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please go and check out the Lightroom Learning Center over at ryanfowler.photography. There's a link to it in the description below, as well as a link to that teeth whitening video that I mentioned earlier in the video. So please do like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next video.